production budgets, tracking production hours, cost of rentals, capital expenditures, those kinds of things, and follow established invoicing practices. They become familiar with the forms of small business and what's entailed in establishing their own small enterprise. They work on developing a brand for their business operation. So I'm going to get you to come up with a fake business, if you will, and but related. Like, it's going to be production related, because that's the thing that makes sense, and that's the thing that you could actually turnkey if you wanted to, right? So I'm not interested in, Lincoln's proposal for, Lincoln's Flowers and Balloon Boutique, right? And maybe that's your passion. I don't know, but each their own. But what I am going to say is that I think there's an opportunity. I think there's an opportunity to. Sorry, there, Dawson. Have you still got us, Dawson?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
You can still see my document here?
Yep. Course outline.
Okay, excellent, good. All right. Bear with here. Where'd my mouse go? There we go. I'm looking to use this as a second screen. All right. Our outcomes: professionalism, conduct ourselves in a way that's reflective of best practices. Skills in content, embrace art and craft of content creation, master technical skills. Social responsibility, use an understanding of the rights and responsibilities of the individual in a democratic society. That's ever more important now. You guys been tracking this thing that's happening in Brazil?
I heard about it.
Yeah, so Bolsonaro lost the Brazilian general election, and he's very Trumpy, right? So his supporters stormed their capital and their Supreme Court and their Congress on essentially the same day as the assault on the U.S. Capitol 2 years ago. So yes, we have to be vigilant, that not let the crazies have too much control over our lives. Attitude and outlook: examine, assess, and reflect on one's own academic skills, professional competence, personal beliefs as they impact themselves and others. Communication: communicate using verbal, non-verbal, and written language with clarity, coherence, and purpose in the context of the workplace. Problem solving: critical thinking, explore, identify, and apply problem solving skills and strategies in individual, group, and client-based settings. All right. So upon successful completion of the course, you guys should be able to describe different types of business structures, describe potential business costs, evaluate the advantages and disadvantages of self-employment or starting a small business, perform a SWOT analysis, that's strength, weaknesses, opportunities, threats assessment, create business planning and development materials. We're going to prepare a production proposal, prepare a business letter, prepare a production project budget, prepare a sample invoice, manage production administration. We're going to prepare and use production project hours tracking tools. You guys have been using it, that's sort of been illustrated through Graham Stoneman's actual too, right? Has he done production tracking? Or you've just been exposed to that in the paper thing, right? Am I correct in that? I don't want to overdo a thing that's already been done to the nth degree. Okay. Research production rentals and associated costs. Compare and contrast equipment ownership to equipment rentals. So one of the things that happens when we leave here, sometimes even when we're still at school, is that people get a little gear hungry, Zach, and we end up buying a bunch of stuff, and it's all very cool. There's nothing wrong with that. Brandon is a market that doesn't have rental houses. Like, we just don't have a place where you could go rent a piece of equipment, right? And lots of small markets are like that. So what you have to have is a relationship with a rental house and the ability to, FedEx, Purelate, DHS, or whatever equipment resources to and from larger centers. So for instance, if you wanted to do a 3-camera shoot in Brandon, it'd be pretty darn hard unless you were working for Westman or working through the school. So there can be, in some cases, ownership that is really advantageous depending on the kind of work you want to do. And in some cases, you don't want to over-own. You don't want to spend so much of your own personal money that for pieces of kit that just sit on a shelf for a really long time. There are things that you use all the time, like having an okay set of lights might be all right. Having a decent set of lab mics or wireless mics might be okay. Having a base level of some image acquisition or sound acquisition or both might be okay. But as it gets more advanced, like let's say Zach, you're working for Candu and they absolutely have to have their stuff shot on an FS7. So you don't own an FS7, at least I don't think that's in your inventory. So the idea is wouldn't want to have to buy that for that project. You'd rent it, right? So there are some things that you can do to accommodate, like James, you might need yourself a good set of quality microphones or something like that, right? Depending on what it is you aspire towards doing. Some people, maybe it's Dawson, he wants to get a little rig together for some of the work that he likes to try to do, right? And I know that Dawson already has a fair bit of his own equipment as well. So we're going to do that. That's number 3. Develop business brand identity and promotional content. So I want you to prepare a case study of a current small business in terms of their brand identity and promotions. Create logos, and this is further down the path. This is towards the end of our course time. We're not going to launch this right quick. Create logos, animations for learners' personal brand and small enterprise. Create a marketing plan. Develop personal professional assets and connections throughout the term. We're going to work to develop personal and professional connections in an industry segment. So what I really want you to do is to reach out, find some people who you feel could add value as potential mentors. Okay, so you have specific areas. I know that Lincoln, you're interested in screenwriting as an example. You want to connect with some screenwriters, some people who, and in a lot of ways, the writing thing fits very nicely into what we're talking about here, because writing is, until you're an accomplished, sought-after writer, it is a passion project, right? So you write because you love to write, and then what happens is you need to find people to help get your work realized, right? And so that's part of this process, is to find folks who can help you realize your further down the line goals. You should have a series of goals for yourself that, like, what's this next 1 or 2, maybe even 3 years going to look like? What's it going to look like after that? Like, have a process that you want to go through. I'll be honest, I didn't do that, and I should have. I sort of did. I had goals, but the reality is that we went through a pretty sharp recession in the late 80s, and there wasn't as much production work then as there is now. So if there's more opportunity for you to be engaged in these kinds of activities, and the gear, when partner of mine and I, there's about 3 of us actually that were going to go in. We wanted to develop a production house in Brandon, right? There are production houses in Winnipeg, and we could work through them. But what would it be to develop the resources that we would require to do real production work in Brandon, high-end commercials, corporate work, that kind of thing? Well, at this point in time, cameras were in the $30,000 to $50,000 range. Edit suites, like we were talking about tape-to-tape editing in standard definition at around 250 grand. So the machines were going to be about 20, 25 grand each. You had to have a switcher, you had to have a controller, you had to have a mixer, you had to have some sort of automation as well. So for 3 young people to go to a bank and say, hey, we've got this idea, you got 350 grand kicking around doing in $1987, $88. Yeah, so that didn't fly, obviously. So much easier now. Like, you can get a 4K camera with a lens and a bunch of toys for under 5 grand that would do a fantastic job, right? So, and you can get resources, obviously, that are much cheaper than that if you want to work in 4K or in HD. So, just word to the wise that what we want to do is find a way to get you connected to the people that can help you move the ball forward. We were talking to people about a production house they thought it was a great idea, but the problem was that capitalization just wasn't going to be there. Like for us to be three people who need to make, probably in that era, 30, 40 grand a year, plus pay down the better part of $350,000 worth of equipment, you'd have to be invoicing out a lot. And so coming to those, like the mentors actually helped to talk us off the cliff. And ultimately the amount, when we did the research on purchasing this stuff, is like, yeah, this is never going to happen. So, now it's a different game. Okay, moving on. I want you to create an elevator pitch. We're actually going to do this in this first project that I'll launch with you in a moment here. Create an effective resume. So probably everybody has a resume. That's going to be probably the easiest part of this. An elevator pitch is simply a very short blurb that can describe you, your enterprise, and your skill sets and what you bring to the table in the amount of time it would take to ride from the first floor to the fifth floor, sort of thing. That's the idea. Is like back in the day, what would happen is young filmmakers would go to these film festivals and they would be hitting up producers to try to get their projects financed, right? To the point where people would be sliding scripts and production proposals under bathroom stall doors. They'd crash elevators. They would go to the after parties of these things and essentially sneak their way in. That stuff doesn't happen as much anymore. There's structure, there's more structure to it, but that was part of the reality back in the day, that you'd have those kinds of shenanigans taking place. So we don't have to have, you're probably not ever going to pitch in an elevator, but that's just become the sort of de facto industry name. Okay, communicate effectively, last one. Complete self-directed research, project work, timely manner, communicate effectively, demonstrate ability to manage time, demonstrate the ability to meet deadlines, present work contained in a portfolio that meets or exceeds industry expectations, work effectively as a leader and a member of production teams. Okay. The breakdown, this is not going to be a very lecture-heavy thing. Lots of it's independent research. Most of it's all of it's project-based. There are no tests or quizzes, and we'll see that as we go through through our project list here. All right, project one, which we're going to launch today here in about 5 minutes. Business practices, terminology, supports, 20%. There's a due date there. Note that the due date's just as we found last term. As schedules are malleable, we will maybe have to move a date here now and again. Hopefully not too much, but the first one should be fairly straightforward. It's not a very complicated project. It's something I was saying to Lincoln before you guys joined this morning, that you could probably have this done by tomorrow or Thursday afternoon if you really wanted to. But we've given you time to kind of ease into it a little bit. Plus, as I was saying to Lincoln before everybody showed up today, we have a little bit of outstanding business. And I know that we don't like to use time to do cleanup, but we do have some cleanup to do. So Prairie Hearts is done, except that it's not, because we haven't handed over the hard drive to him. So we're going to use a little bit of our time. So think of our first project as being kind of on your own time. We will have class time to work on it as well, but it's an on your own time kind of thing. We're going to use the first couple of days to try to get the last bits and pieces of the puzzle sorted for Prairie Hearts. So the goal is that I have everything on a hard drive by Friday and ship it off to Kim and be done with it. Because I think you guys are kind of like me. Prairie Hearts was a great experience. Glad to be, glad it's going to be gone. And by the way, the work was excellent. There's lots of good stuff that went on in there. You guys should feel good about those projects, and you should feel good about what we achieved during the packaging. It looked like a show. It felt like a show. All the things that happened were pretty much what we would expect in a show. So, and I think, just reflecting on Kim's presence, he had absolutely no concerns at all. It's like the only thing that was unfortunate is the one thing we didn't catch in the credits. There's one thing in the credits on the first episode that we have to fix, or that I'll have to fix. We don't have to do any more color correction. There's one outstanding item that needs some work, and we'll hopefully get that wrapped up. But what we want to do is just go through the list and say, okay, we've got all the elements so that I can basically go, Prairie Hearts 2023, click, drag, drop. And it sits there for half a day, moves its 40 gigs or 80 gigs or 200 gigs worth of stuff over to a drive, and send it off to Winnipeg. But knowing as well that it's really, really tight in terms of its organization. So there's a folder for each episode, and a folder for each of the elements inside that, so that essentially what's going to happen, this is going to go to a post-production facility for final tweaks, and they're going to say, okay, well, we need to do this, and this, and they're going to want to put together their own teaser trailer. Well, that's one thing that has to be cut as well. We did not cut, and I think I put Colin and myself on the list for that. We didn't cut a promo per se. The idea being that we want to take what Nicole did on camera for our promo tape, the very last thing that we did, and we want to cut in some shots and maybe some sound ups. We're going to just take it into post and just do a little bit of an edit on it. So, okay. Project 2, sorry, I got distracted there. Project 2, business development documents. Project 3, production administration. Project 4 will be brand identity and promotion. And Project 5, personal production assets, mentorship connections. Each worth 20%. Like I said, these dates are going to be a little bit malleable, but shouldn't be too off base, I don't think. The topical outline, if we look at the first couple weeks here, Project 1, I'll talk about that today here in just a moment. Independent research, and we're going to introduce next week Project 2. They'll overlap a little bit, and it's going to be client-based project work. And that's where the production proposal and the letter and all those kinds of things will come into play. If you can walk out of here with a good form letter, a good resume, a good template for production proposals, something like, because I'm guessing that it won't be very long until people come to you and say, hey, how much would it cost to do a video about a thing? And like, I don't know. So if you have some tools, the ability to put that together, then you'll be, I think, in really good shape. So the topical outline, again, is a little malleable just because of the nature of the work that we do and the opportunities that are going to come up. So I'll leave that to your edification. Everything will be posted in Moodle. But what I'm going to get you to do is I'm going to get you to submit your documents on the mass. It's not that hard to do, and that way we've got a place. Getting used to putting all of our work in one place. I think that this probably happened to you guys a little bit. I know it certainly happened to year one. Some would be email, some would be going to Moodle, some would be going to the NAS, some would be going somewhere else, some would be just a YouTube link getting sent or whatever. A little bit of chaos. But you know what? I guess a little bit of chaos is not a bad thing, in the sense that you just don't know how your clients are doing. There's not one final place or solution for any of the work that you submit. They're all going to have their own individual requirements and what have yous. So, based on that, any questions so far? Everything feels all right? Okay.
Did you get invited to the school?
You know what? I'll check that, James. I thought I registered you guys.
I found it, but I haven't got an email or anything.
Okay.
Yeah, I found it. I just need to watch.
Oh, okay. Well, shit. I'll I know I looked after the team side, and I was pretty certain I looked after the Moodle, but I'll jump on that right away, James. Okay. Next item. Business Project 1. Link, Dawson, can you see this okay?
No.
Let me change it up.
It's not on the screen. But the thing about that is it's gonna
Bear with me here, lad. How about that?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So this is project one. And James, thanks so much for that. I'm absolutely certain you were registered, but I'll double check on that when we're done this. Okay, project one, small business fundamentals, independent research. There are 4 items in here. Each item's worth 5% for a total of 20. It's due on January 23rd of 2023. The objective is operating a small business or working independently on projects outside of your regular work can be rewarding both financially and creatively. It can lead to additional contacts and may help you advance your career in a direction you wish to take. Envision that you are going to undertake work in the gig economy and you want to take advantage of the benefits of operating a small business. It is our hope that when you leave the doors here at school, that you will find gainful employment, and preferably with your practicum host. We never guarantee that, but we always sort of make the case that practicum is your best foot forward. It's an opportunity not only for you to learn, but to also demonstrate your skills to prospective employers, which is why we want you to be thinking about that when you think about your practicum placements. Maria and I and Graham will be for solidifying your practicums as we go forward here. So, you're going to get that steady Eddie, but, it may not speak to, like, you might work in some capacity, Lincoln, but it's not speaking to your soul in terms of screenwriting, right? Let's just use that as an example. So the idea is that screenwriting becomes a bit of your side hustle, passion project, and having some business acumen is possibly going to be helpful in that instance. Independent project work or freelancing can be handled as a small business. There are some advantages and disadvantages to this approach. This project consists of independent research you'll conduct in order to better understand the fundamentals of starting a small enterprise, even if it is to assist you in pursuing work in the gig economy. Our tasks are as follows. Use the resources. I've got about 4 or 5 different URLs at the bottom of this document. And I'll make sure that you get this. My apologies. So I'm guessing you probably forgot to enroll you guys. I thought I had. Oh well. In point form, identify different types of business enterprise, their strengths and weaknesses using the following online resources. Those are the ones at the bottom. And so it could be a table, the type of business, advantage, disadvantage. I'll give you an example. Sole proprietorship is something that you are you solely own. You don't have a partner. You don't incorporate. It's the simplest form of business to set up. There's a whole bunch of different resources here that will help guide you through whether it's a sole proprietorship, a partnership. There are cooperatives as well. I don't think anybody here is be forming a co-op with shares and that whole thing. And then of course there's the limited corporation setup. It's a bit more expensive, but there's more protection to you if you run your work through a limited corporation. If you're doing a lot of production work, like if you had, let's say you're getting close to GST level taxable income, so the threshold is you can make up to, they may have raised this by now, $30,000 before you have to start to declare GST. So you're not responsible up to that point in time. By the time you get to that point, then you probably want to be thinking about, at the very least, a sole proprietorship, possibly a limited corporation. But $30,000 of production work over top of your steady Eddie would be a pretty significant amount of work, right? When you're thinking about, working a few hundred, $300 a shift, you'd really have to pull a lot of shifts to get yourself to that threshold. That would almost be, would be 100 shifts to get there. So it's something to be thinking of, but it's not something that I think you have to be in a super hot hurry to get to. One thing I would suggest, and this is probably the most important single piece of advice that I would give you if you are thinking about going down this road, get a bookkeeper and accountant right out of the gate. Go find yourself somebody who can, it doesn't have to be, Myers, Morris, and Penny. You don't have to go to that level. It could be, but you can find, as long as they're a credible operation. Sally's bookkeeping probably does just as good a job for the small amount They're going to help you because they know the ins and outs of taxation and etc. From a business point of view, if you're really, really, I'm so hungry to start a business, there's a business program over there. Come back, do another 2 years. And there are people who've done that. In our world, it's like, well, what I really want to do, the thing that I have a small business, but I don't really love operating my small business. I just like what my small business allows me to do. So I'm about the work, not about like, I'm not really interested. There's a bookkeeper who looks after my stuff, right? And so that's the number one rule to success in terms of managing your accounts from the business point of view. Find a bookkeeper or an accountant who will help keep you on the straight and narrow. And that should be like day one, I want to start a business. Day two, I have a bookkeeper, right? So that's find those people because they're the ones who are going to help you navigate. But navigating, an entire book of 400, 800, 1,000 pages of tax codes, I don't want to do that at all. I have no interest in it. So, that's what a bookkeeper's trade is, or an accountant's trade is. Okay, so enough about that. So type of business advantages, disadvantages, again, that's the sole proprietorship, corporation, cooperative, partnership scenario. Identify some of the key supports available to small business entrepreneurs and how they can help, and this will come up here in just a moment. The elevator pitch draft in a paragraph, tell us your name, your company name, what does your business do, the benefit of your product service to the customer, a call to action, give them your card. That's another thing too that we'll be developing is everybody's going to walk out of here with business cards of some sort. It can just be an introductory thing. It doesn't have to have it could have a really fancy logo and an awesome presentation, but it could be just enough. There are people who still in this world operate off of business cards. They have Rolodexes or they scan them and have them electronically converted into cards. I'm not that person. I don't carry business cards with me at all. Sadly, not even for the college do I carry my business cards, and I have a box of 1,000 of them that never gets opened because I just never use it. Not to say that you shouldn't, and we will do that. Prepare and report on a SWOT analysis. There are a number of SWOT templates available online. What that is: strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. So basically, it's a quadrant. I'll show you an example in a moment. There's lots of templates online. Essentially, it's both a personal and a professional assessment. What are the strengths that you bring to the table? What weaknesses and what areas do you feel you need to build upon to make yourself that much more employable or that much more marketable to potential clients? Opportunities, where are the opportunities for you to make additional revenue? And the threats, which is your competition. What are the kinds of business pressures? Those kinds of things are all included in a SWOT. And I'm going to get you to do that bit of research. So what is a SWOT? Why is it used? What should be included in a SWOT? And that's actually one of those things that if you were to take this to the Small Business Development Center, so Canada as a union has created a series of business supports. They want to help people to get into small enterprise in Canada. So that's the next, 2 employees to like 200 employees would be considered small businesses. I don't think you'd feel like if you had 200 employees, it's very small, but in the big picture, right, that's sort of in that small business range. Incomes would be in the low hundreds of thousands to possibly millions of dollars. So and it drives a huge part of the Canadian economy. So that's why, they want to support. So the Business Development Center, they have a whole raft of supports that are available to you. And they would be looking for a SWOT analysis. And you come to them and say, okay, you've got your SWOT together. You know what? If you came to them with paperwork and they say, oh, this is pretty good. So, I don't think this particular group doesn't have to come up with a fully fleshed out business plan, because that's not the nature of what you're going to do. Maybe our friends next door in Web and Interactive and digital art and design, because that freelance economy, you can work from wherever. It's harder for us to do that. It's not as hard as it once was because we know that we can access material in the cloud and do post-production and those kinds of things. But generally speaking, our contracts are with people who are in our markets directly. It's not unheard of to be working outside of market. And then the last one here, 4, identify some of the small potential costs for starting a small business. Identify a minimum of 4 revenue opportunities for your small business or gig work. Online resources. So we have the Canadian government has a couple of different resource tools. I'll just go to this first one. Oops. Oh, come on. Here, I'll just copy and paste. Good. Computer. Dawson, I'll probably have to change my share screen here.
Yes, chef. Is the share screen like on your little computer?
Yeah, just hang on one sec there, Vlad.
And like,
I will have.
oh, that sucks.
Can you actually see this, Dawson?
Yes.
Okay, so Government of Canada is starting a business. This basically has, and I've given you 4 different resources that you could go to help you complete this task. So, planning a business, choosing a business name, registering your business, getting business support and financing, tax help, free tax help. That's anytime you see free, you got to be excited about that. Applying for business permits and licenses, those kinds of things. So yes, those are things that, and there's, like I said, about 4 or 5 of these resources that are URLs that are part of the document that you'll have access to here. Well, I guess the last thing that I wanted to bring up related to this. Can you see this? We're back on the project sheet there, Dawson.
Yes, chef.
Okay, cool. So, like I said, there's those URLs. That's not the only place you can go, though. There's a number of other places you can go to look items up. All 4 sections, the criteria is really simple. All 4 sections are complete and submitted. You can submit either a Word document or a PDF. You can use point form or long form notation, tables, spreadsheets, or organize and submit your work. It is a checklist thing. I'm not looking for, pages and pages of research and a diatribe about the ethics of business, et cetera, et cetera. It's really a completion document. So, again, we'll just go back through that. We have till the 23rd to work on this. So in point form, identify types of businesses, identify some of the key supports. So that's literally on that web page that I took you to. The elevator pitch draft, that's an independent research thing. So just look up different elevator pitches, think about the kind of thing that you want to be able to say in an elevator pitch, and write a paragraph. Prepare and report a SWOT analysis. That's one thing I wanted to do with you right now before we get too far. I can see in the hall there, Graham's already chomping at the bit. He's got carts rolling and cameras are moving, and it's very exciting times over there. So a SWOT analysis. And there's a whole bunch of templates. And I'll just go to it and share. So it could be really pretty. It could be really basic. So I'll just go into this one. I haven't even looked at this one, to be honest. I'm just grabbing it. So we'll quite literally, and I'm not looking for a copy and paste scenario. Like, don't just grab the data right off the web page and, hey, Greg, this is what I found. But what I would like is at least, a synopsis, if you will, that is in your voice. It can be, again, I'm not looking for a complex document. Point form notation is fine, right? So this is a box you can check fairly quickly and easily. So the SWOT analysis tells us what the SWOT analysis does, the benefits of SWOT analysis. You can find this in a bunch of different places. And that's the nature of an independent research project, right? So here are your tasks. You are all capable of doing research. You've done research for stories, for documentaries, you've done research for other projects here at school. This is just one more thing to research. And as opposed to me standing up here, I could prepare, and I have in the past, a PowerPoint that walks through absolutely everything that I'm describing and then ask you to regurgitate it back. That makes zero sense to me. You guys can go and do this research and fill out this document. Like I say, you literally could have it done by tomorrow or Thursday afternoon if you wanted to. You've also got a little bit of time to play with it and ask questions. And that's kind of the role that I intend to play. A lot of this will be independent, research based. There will be some things that we'll talk about. We're going to have some guest speakers, some people who will dial in and say, hey, this is what I do in my small enterprise. A couple of buddies and some colleagues and some old schoolers from ACC days gone by will jump in to talk to you folks about, and that getting in touch with our folks at 8:30 on a weekday morning isn't necessarily going to be the easiest thing in the world. So what I might have to do is ask for some borrowed time. Does that make sense to everybody? So like I can't get them online at 8:30 in the morning. We can tell right now we're missing 3 people, right? I mean, Dawson's with us. So Dawson, good on you. But, yeah, so we don't have everybody here. If I can't get the people who are taking the course, try to get somebody who's going to hey, Greg, I'll do you a favor, but I don't know about 8:30, right? So we'll be talking to some folks from outside who will give you their perspective as well, and who may actually factor into that mentorship thing that we spoke of right out of the gate. So, and mentorship, I think, is one of the key aspects. Like, yes, it's good to know the fundamentals of the small business and small enterprise, but making good connections, finding people who, and this is going to be a theme in Capstone and the other work that you do as well. So finding specific people to help you in specific ways to advance not only your skill sets, but your understanding of our industry and where you might fit into it, how you might put your best foot forward in certain segments. That's a good thing. So does anybody have any questions? That's kind of my presentation for this morning. I'm dry as toast. I haven't talked that much in 2.5 weeks. And James, again, I'm sorry. I think I have forgotten to enroll you guys. My apologies. So I was just bombing away, doing all my, and honestly, troubleshooting these cameras over here, that pen-tool zoomed ridiculousness, that was a freaking full day. It was 6 hours of wandering back and forth between here and the gym. I got my steps in, but I don't know that it counted for much.
Yeah?
Yeah, so Dawson, sorry, I forgot about you, man.
Hi!
Hold on, let me bring you up. Here you are.
Hi!
Okay, so Dawson, were there any questions on any of that stuff? Make sense?
Yeah. Make your own little business. Try to, if you can, get an accountant. Yeah.
So you know what? Here's the thing, though, Dawson. Like on the accountant slash bookkeeper, and you know what? Accountants are pretty high end, and they cost you a lot of money per hour. Bookkeepers are probably the way to go, but it's not something you have to do unless you are really going to go down this road. In fact, your first year out of college, I'd be surprised if you even bother.
Yeah.
Just because it's like you'll be so busy just trying to get your feet under you.
Yep.
That
Yeah.
you won't have time. But it's later. It's like, and what's happened too, and I encourage you to keep these kinds of documents that you're going to be generating and the knowledge base that you acquire, because I've had students reach back about 2 or 3 years after school and say, hey, Greg, you know all that stuff in the business class? Actually, can you send me those files? Right? Because they are going to go down that road. But just in doing that independent research, right, you will already be linked in and connected to the things that can help you get started. So, does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, so now we're going to change gears. Tomorrow morning, we're going to go over and meet with Graham here for Capstone here shortly. And I don't know Dawson if Graham has, or Murray or Mike, it won't be Mike, but whether or not they've reached out to set up a Teams chat with you.
Oh, probably
But
not.
Just an FYI, unless the roads are really for shit,
Yeah.
we'll be in person, okay, pal?
Yeah, chef.
And I understand 8:30 in the morning is a tough one. I get it. Especially coming from where you're coming from. Why is that Christmas tree still up? That's gotta go. Ukrainian Christmas is over. All the Christmases are over. Pack that thing up.
Yeah, chef.
My daughter and I tore down the Christmas trees last night, or yesterday afternoon. They were up way too long. It's just driving me crazy.
It's so happy paper in the basement when Christmas till we got back.
Well, that kind of makes sense, though. I mean, you were on the beach, right? I'm surprised you didn't take any color. You must have listened to me about the sunscreen.
No,
You had a little bit of
I
color?
look like a zebra. Because there was this cheap kids sunscreen.
Yeah.
And that's sunscreen.
Right.
So you don't rub it in, you're supposed to spray it.
Right.
I almost I have like stripes of red on my arm. Cool. My sister was like just red.
Hey, Murray.
man. Oh, hey guys.
Hey, Murray.
Hey,
Where
let's
Where are we
go.
doing this?
Sure, get my
Capstone.
There he is.
We're all doing Capstone.
doing together?
We're doing a launch together, are we not?
I don't think so.
No, I thought we were, but oh well.
Oh, it's used to it.
No, guess maybe we are. All right. See you, Murray. At any rate, we are at the end of our time, Dawson.
Okay.
So I'm while we're moving everybody on to Capstone next,
Okay.
I'm going to I'll check on the enrollment keys and make sure you guys have access to that. My apologies if I don't think I actually managed to do that. So if there aren't any questions, we'll see you here tomorrow. And the main thing I mentioned about changing gears is that we'll be working a little bit on putting the wraps on our Prairie Heart stuff the next 3 mornings. And if we can do that, then that'd be great. So Dawson, I'm going to bid you adieu, okay? Okay, I'll talk to you tomorrow.
Okay. Thank you,
Okay,
Greg.
cheers.
Cheers.
Yeah, thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye bye.